Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a really powerful concept, the Swiss cheese model, or SCM.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Developed by psychologist James Reason back in the 90s.
Exactly. And it's become this, well, globally recognized framework. You see it everywhere.
Yeah.
Healthcare, aviation, nuclear power, basically complex systems.
It's all about understanding how failures happen in those kinds of environments.
So our mission today is really to cut through the noise a bit, show you how this pretty simple metaphor offers a profound shortcut.
Yeah, a shortcut to understanding why accidents happen and, maybe more importantly, how we might prevent them.
Okay, so the core metaphor itself,
Yeah.
it's visual, right? Like actual Swiss cheese.
Yeah, that's the idea. Imagine multiple layers of defenses, like slices of Swiss cheese stacked up.
Right.
Now, each slice, each layer of defense, it has holes. And these aren't, totally random. They represent specific weaknesses or potential failures within that one layer.
Okay, so holes are weaknesses in each individual defense layer.
Precisely. And the crucial insight, the thing that makes the model so useful, is that an accident or a big error usually happens when these holes across different layers just happen to align.
Ah, okay, so they line up temporarily.
Exactly. It creates this unobstructed pathway for a hazard to pass right through all the defenses.
So it's rarely just one single thing failing. It's more like a perfect storm.
That's a good way to put it. A perfect storm of small imperfections lining up.
That makes sense. It connects the dots instead of just blaming one thing. So how does the SCM help us dig into what those holes actually are? What components does it look at?
Well, it breaks them down into a couple of key types. First, you've got what are called active failures.
Active failures.
Yeah, these are the immediate things, the errors you can see made by people right there at the sharp end, like a pilot's mistake, or maybe a surgeon having a momentary lapse.
The sort of human error we often hear about first.
Exactly. And the sources mention big examples, right? Like Chernobyl in '86 or the BP Deepwater Horizon spill in 2010. Active failures, individual actions, definitely played a part there.
Okay, so those are the active failures, the immediate cause sometimes. But you mentioned they're often just symptoms. What are the deeper things setting the stage?
Right, and that's where the SCM really highlights latent conditions. These are the underlying weaknesses, often hidden, lurking within the organization or the system itself.
Hidden weaknesses. Like what?
Think inadequate training, maybe poor communication channels between teams, or just not having enough resources like staff or equipment. These are the holes that can exist for a long time unnoticed.
Okay, so they're setting the stage for those active failures to actually happen or to have worse consequences.
Precisely. Like your sources mentioned that statistic from South Korea, right?
Yeah.
About chemical accidents between 2008 and 2018.
Yeah, 76.1% linked to human error.
Which sounds like purely active failures. But the SCM perspective suggests many of those errors likely stemmed from underlying latent conditions. Maybe rushed procedures, lack of proper maintenance, things like that.
That really shifts the focus, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Away from just blaming the individual. So these layers you mentioned, the cheese slices with the holes, those are the defenses and barriers themselves.
Yes, exactly. The safeguards we put in place. Things like safety protocols, checklists, training programs, even how equipment is designed.
And the holes in those defenses can come from, well, all sorts of things.
Right. It could be that human error we talked about, an active failure punching a hole. Or it could be equipment malfunction, maybe a design flaw nobody spotted, or even inadequate training that meant to be a defense but wasn't strong enough.
So the model pushes you to ask why the defense failed, not just that it failed.
Exactly. Look beyond blame. Find the root cause of the hole.
It sounds, well, pretty intuitive when you lay it out like that. Why has this model been so valuable, especially in complex fields?
I think it's that visual simplicity. It gives you an intuitive way to see vulnerability. And it promotes a really holistic view. You stop looking just at the individual mistake and start seeing the whole system.
Seeing how different factors might connect, even ones that seem unrelated at first.
Yeah. And it highlights that sometimes the most dangerous holes are the ones you don't see easily, like unacknowledged risks or maybe cultural blind spots in an organization. It helps you see that bigger picture.
And it definitely encourages being proactive, right? Instead of just cleaning up after an accident.
Absolutely. You use the model to anticipate where holes might align, where weaknesses exist, and you try to strengthen those layers before anything happens. You're designing resilience in.
Now, it's a model, so it's not perfect. Your sources mentioned some critiques.
Yeah, definitely. While it's super impactful, critics point out it can, well, oversimplify a really complex reality sometimes. It might not fully capture how different failures interact in dynamic ways.
And maybe sometimes puts a bit too much focus back on human error, potentially letting organizational issues off the hook.
That's another critique, yeah. Overlooking things like core leadership or a weak safety culture that are actually creating those latent conditions, those pre-existing holes, which raises the question, how does it stay relevant?
And that leads to its evolution, right? People are working on enhancing it.
Exactly, trying to integrate human factors more deeply, accounting for defenses that aren't static but change over time, maybe using new tech like data analytics or AI to spot those hole alignments in real time.
So it's adapting. It's not stuck in the 90s.
Definitely not. But beyond the big picture, the academic critiques, the real question for you, listening, is how this translates practically.
Right. How can understanding this model actually help?
Well, it can really improve decision-making. Just forcing yourself to think about multiple potential failure points in, say, a project you're managing, or even a process at home. Where are your layers of cheese? Where might the holes be?
And for organizations, it's not just about safety in high-risk places. It protects reputations, potentially reduces costs by catching risks early.
Yeah, and it's not just about preventing failure. It can actually help with innovation, too.
How so?
Well, if you consciously build robust layers, multiple defenses using this kind of thinking, it can give you more confidence to take calculated risks, to try new things, because you've minimized the chance of those catastrophic hole alignment scenarios.
That's a great point. It enables intelligent risk-taking.
So ultimately, this deep dive, I think it shows the Swiss cheese model isn't just some diagram. It's a powerful way to think about resilience and safety.
Yeah, it really drives home that safety isn't about having one perfect, impenetrable layer. It's about having multiple layers and making them as robust as possible, knowing none will be perfect.
Exactly. And whether you're managing, a massive complex project or just navigating daily life, thinking about building multiple layers of defense and being aware of where the potential holes are in each, that can really improve your outcomes.
So thinking about that layered approach, what stands out to you about applying that kind of thinking to something in your own life or work? Something to ponder.